Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Quantum Leap Season 2, Episode 11. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this is going to be kind of a little morbid to kind of start off at the beginning. I want to do this just because I'm going to end up forgetting, because sometimes I do, but we had that in memory of at the end of the episode, and I looked it up. Matt Dale was an author and podcaster. His specific connection to the show is that he was a massive fan of Quantum Leap, and he did a podcast about the original series, but he also did one about this reboot slash continuation. Once again, I just always, I don't know, it's kind of sad to kind of start there, but I just didn't want to end up forgetting about that, because sometimes I look into that stuff, wondering who this person is and what maybe their association, whether they're a producer or what role they may have played in some shape or form. So I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that at the beginning. So like I said, sorry to kind of start off there, but I just wanted to make sure I included that. So jumping into this episode, we have been jumping into leaping into the body of a reporter slash cameraman for Connie, who is this well-known New York reporter slash journalist, but the problem is that she ended up getting fired, and here in Colorado is like the only job she can get at this particular news station. So she's kind of like, oh, like that veteran who's got all the skills, the know-how, is just, for whatever reason, her career, like something happened. It doesn't seem clear what it was, but something happened that ended up getting her fired. And she's just taking whatever work she can get. But the person Ben is slept into stumbles upon a big case, and he wants Connie's help. But he ends up being convinced by Connie, hey, you need to actually do the work. I mean, she wasn't really pushing him to take the job, especially because Ben got pistol whipped and told to stay off the case. But I love that him and Addison kind of put in the work, and just like, it's like, wait, did you bring coffee into the imaging chamber? It's like, yeah. I was like, that's funny, because I was like, has that come up before, someone bringing something outside into the imaging chamber? It probably hasn't, I just don't remember, but I love that. Them both getting hopped up on coffee trying to like work this. It felt very like Clark and Lois working at the Daily Planet. It felt like that, which I was like, oh, I really like that. Obviously, some sparks are rekindling, which is kind of, I mean, that's the thing of like, it's hard to say where their relationship is going to end up when this is all said and done, because they're in a complicated spot, because Ben's always going to love Addison, Addison's always going to love Ben, but it's like her and Tom are in the awkward spot they're in, plus Ben and Hannah are in the awkward spot they're in, where it's like, well, she's married now, and I'm not trying to ruin that, but I always will care about her, and she cares about me. And even Hannah herself said, like, right, she doesn't believe people just can like love one person. Like, there's room in your heart for more, so it's gonna be interesting to see where things kind of go on that front. I don't think, sadly, Hannah and Ben are long term, which is ironic to say considering time travel is involved. They are the longest term in that regard. I think it's going to end up having like a Peggy and Cap situation to it. But I mean, they have their happily ever after. But you look out there in the multiverse, maybe somewhere out there in the multiverse they get their happy ever after, and we got that in the MCU. But that's a whole conversation derived from What If. But it's a complicated situation. Once again, the one I always go back to is the whole Doctor and River Song's relationship and how complicated that was. So, but either way, it's just, there's obviously sparks there, because they had that moment where they're looking at each other, because he found out, like, because she would say, like, right, if I wasn't doing this stuff with Quantum Leap, I'd be a journalist. And he's like, how is it that I've never known that? She's like, oh, I want to keep some secrets. And it's like, yeah, you continue to amaze me all the time. It's like you see them looking and smiling at each other. So it's a really dope moment between them. But yeah, it turns out the major case in all of this is that there's a company, Herbicor, that is making a pesticide a weed killer, but it turns out that one is killing people. It's giving people, it's farmers, lung cancer. I thought something was going to be up because like they introduced it early on that the farmers who had that giant pumpkin that they're interviewing them about early on in the episode, the wife was coughing. I was like, that seems like there's something there. So I immediately connected the dots there. But the problem is, well, obviously, Connie, shows her know-how and what she's good at. She calls up one of her cop friends, was able to kind of trace the phone number from the payphone, and it turns out the deep throat in the situation, the person who is spilling the beans, being the whistleblower, is Robbie, the younger brother. It did seem like he was kind of getting shut out. If you looked at the commercial, Chet, like you can see Robbie almost about to say something, then Chet kind of like hijacks him, and then like Robbie has to take a step back. So it kind of shows you the dynamic in the relationship where he's kind of the one that doesn't get a lot of the attention and respect, even though they probably made the company. And so they didn't really get into a lot of the nuance of that relationship and everything, but it kind of felt like early on you knew there was probably going to be some rift or issue between the brothers. Part of me, an almost quick thought was like, could it be that Robbie's the one that cut a lot of the corners and Chet was completely unaware or something like that? But it's like, no, they're both responsible. Robbie wanted to do the right thing, but they both signed off on the reports telling them like, hey, this is going to give people cancer and make them sick, but they didn't care. Well, Robbie did. He has a conscience, but Chet was all about cutting corners because it is that corporate thing of it actually will cost us more money to pull this than it will the long run with all these people getting sick and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy too, considering like that product present day was still around, and so it's it's stuff like that that's so fascinating. I mean, stuff like that happens where it's just like stuff gets buried of like, let's not talk about the downside of all this. That's kind of like, oh, let's, it costs us too much. Like, a lot of stuff, that's how rich companies stay rich. You cut corners. That's kind of almost like a stereotypical given, but it's just like, that's a stereotype about like large corporations that are going to cut corners just to save a penny, because a penny can, build up of like, oh, cut a penny here or two here. In the long run, you end up saving yourself millions. Sadly, that's the math that someone rich and powerful can live with, so. But either way, it's about breaking this story open, but they don't have their smoking gun yet. But because they ended up visiting the husband and wife from earlier in the episode, which Ben's approach didn't work, but Connie knows how to talk to people as a reporter, so she knows like just the right thing of like, she's saying it in a calm demeanor, being like, you're gonna be okay, trust me. The fact of the matter, it's like, let's get your wife, I know the great doctor your wife can go see, like the best that your wife can go see, and we're just going to take a couple soil samples, okay, and you're going to be okay. And like her way of handling people, like she knows how to talk to people and how to handle people in that regard. So obviously Ben's just kind of flustered and just scared because like, oh, this is a scary situation, you got to know. But it's like you panicking people like that doesn't do good. It's just like they need to be calm and hear it from a calm voice and kind of accept it, I think. But they had everything they needed, but the moment Connie was like, oh yeah, like I got this, like there's this car accident, the boss has let me cover it, I was like, oh my god, it's Robbie, isn't it? And it turns out it's his car, and this is what shuts Connie down, because for her, we find out that's where things went wrong in New York. She pushed a source too hard before they were ready, and they killed themselves, and she felt guilty about it. It's like, I don't think she did anything wrong. She did get, I was about to say, did she quit? But it's like, no, she was fired. So they probably put a lot of that blame on her of like, yeah, we can't have our reporters get like pushing our sources too hard. And that just that guilt and over that responsibility. That's why I'm like, did she more so quit than actually get fired? That feels something more like you'd quit over, not get fired. But maybe her bosses felt like it was too much if word got out about what she did and what she was responsible for in their eyes, and just the perception of it. And obviously Connie felt a lot of guilt over it. That's why she was like, right, that's kind of a hard lesson she learned in life, and she actually fires Ben because she's like, I don't want you to have to go through that, kid. So, and especially at a time where all of everything's in flux. Cause we'll get to the quantum leap side of things, but it's this larger conversation about purpose. Because Connie had kind of lost her purpose for a little bit. Ben was spiraling a little bit about his purpose because he did this to save people and help people. But it turns out, hey, I didn't talk about it yet, but there's a whole situation with Hannah. Hannah got his letter from the previous leap, but the problem is that Josh died regardless. He died like a year later from a car accident. It's like some Final Destination stuff of... It's so interesting because some aspects of things are just meant to be. I guess they're just some fixed points in time you can't change. That's kind of a whole thing. Even though there are people that Ben's been associated with through his leaps that were supposed to die but didn't, and we changed things for the better. It's just sad, but it's like... This episode kind of gets into that whole conversation of just some things were just meant to be. But before we kind of circle back to that, we'll circle to that later, but we got this conversation from Addison where she was talking to Ben about everything, about how, she tells him about everything, like, okay, so me and Tom got engaged, but now we're unengaged. And it's like, oh, what happened? She's like, no, it wasn't about you. He's like, no, I wasn't even thinking that. It's like, maybe on some level it is. It just, I think Addison's still figuring stuff out on her own too, but Ben probably plays some role in it. But she talks about it. It's like, she's had to constantly change who she is that she doesn't really know. Like, she's kind of lost her way a little bit of like, I know what I'm doing, and, it's like, but who am I? I've lost a little bit of me along the way because I've constantly had to change who I am. It's like, well, I had to change who I am because I had to become your hologram once you left. And then you died, and I had to kind of find a way forward, and I met Tom, and that became the new me. But then you came back, and now I'm back here, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, I lost myself along the way. And it's like, who am I? What new role am I? It's hard to slide back into that role of being his hologram again, considering everything that she's been through, and the pain and the spiral she went through. So... But we also, it just, that ended up being this interesting conversation, because it's like, Ben's purpose is to help people, but he felt like he failed Josh and he failed Robbie. But it turns out Robbie died in the original timeline, and it's like, wait, what? It's like, wait, but wouldn't that be something I could change? Why did that? And it's like, no, because he faked his death, which makes you wonder, did he fake his death in the original timeline as well? Or did he actually die in the original timeline because maybe his brother or somebody found out about him? Because it's like, yeah, like, the person Ben leapt into after getting pistol whipped in the original timeline, they abandoned the case, and Robbie still, quote-unquote, died. So I'm like, I don't know if he probably just disappeared. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You would think that I don't know. Well, like, if he faked his death, you really wouldn't know. Like, he just never popped up again and disappeared. So, Ben tells Connie this, but she's still afraid to kind of take that step forward. But it's like, at the end of the day, you are who you are. This is your purpose. You're very good at this, and the fact is that we can change and we can still help people, because that's why you do what you do. You want to help people. That's what she wants to do. So I love the parallels drawn between Ben's story and Connie's, especially because they're intermingled because of the leap and everything. But they end up finding Robbie. And yeah, his biggest reservation, I thought it's because he didn't want to turn on his brother, which there might be some small element to that, but it's also because it was self-preservation, because his name was on the memo report that reveals, like, they signed off knowing about the way people would get sick. So, but Connie ended up talking to him, explaining, like, I know you want to do the right thing. And she's like, no matter where you run, it's not going to, I don't think that's going to alleviate or get rid of that feeling. And I think for her, like, she's talking from personal experience, because everything that went down in New York still followed her here. She couldn't fully escape. So it's like, you can't kind of run away from this. It's always going to eat away at you. But if you do the right thing, I think that's going to go a long way. And it does. So they have this whole setup. Ben breaks into the safe at Herbivore while they distract Chet during an interview. And I love that Jen obviously backs him up on how to break into the safe. And I love Ben being like, okay, home dude, who's like, oh, you're ski mask. Well, the fact is that I got a camera set up and saw you putting on that ski mask, and with Addison's help, knows exactly his name. It's like, oh, like, your mom, you don't want her to see it on the news tonight about you while she's playing her backgammon. and he lowers the gun. I was like, it was kind of a badass like action scene moment that Ben had, and then he grabs like the trophy thing or whatever he used to bust open the safe and smashed him in the head. That's just like that works, because it's like, yeah, you don't want to take like go ahead and knock him out. So, but nevertheless, they got the report, and ultimately at the end of the episode, we see Connie confront Chet during the interview, and now has all the documents and she's reading it off. So it all obviously works out. We even find out that Robbie gets a job at the EPA. So taking this thing that was going to go super sour and eventually using it as an opportunity to continue helping make sure stuff stays in line, and so as a whistleblower of a circumstance like this, it makes sense for him to kind of take a job like that and get an opportunity like that to kind of, I think, continue helping people. And Connie's career gets back on course. We don't know where it goes completely, but it's in a good place again. And with that, obviously Ben leaps. So our duo. I think this is an episode where they like really like nose to the grind, like work together like heavily. I mean, they work together. They're partners in crime when it comes to all of the saving the day. But I think this is the episode where they like really buckled down and really like, obviously they did a lot of research, coffee and everything. It's really nice. All the while this is happening, we have everything happening at Quantum Leap. Gideon makes his declaration, and he's putting Ian on blast, and like, okay, now Magic's hearing all of this for the first time. It's like, Ian should have gone to Magic long before now, because Jen kept pushing for it, but Ian was too scared, I think they were just scared of what was going to happen, because they were, at the end of the day, worried, like, if the truth came out, the Quantum Leap project might get shut down. It was shut down before, didn't want to let that happen again. But so Gideon's like, yeah, like, you guys aren't as valuable as me, because the Department of Defense uses a lot of my tech and stuff like that. So when I kind of make a rumble, they're going to listen to me. So you're going to have to like give me my chip back. It's like, well, Gideon was taking proprietary like government information. Like he was getting all of that from the Quantum Leap chip. And that's where I'm like, but I guess like in the long run, it's like it's your fault for using it. He's entitled, especially his relationship and dynamic with the government. He's entitled to that. I guess it like gives him leeway. It's like they're not going to care too much about him having that, which makes you wonder in the long run what happens to Rachel. Does she get fired? What ramifications is she going to end up suffering? And in this episode, we saw Magic a way we've never seen him before. Him yelling at Ian and also yelling at Jen. It's like, Ian was just trying to do the right thing. And now the person that was going to be there to interrogate Ian, turns out it's Tom. And it's like, will he, where things between him and Addison stand, it's like, isn't that a little conflict of interesty? But at the time, Tom's like, well, Gideon doesn't know about our dynamic. He's like, I don't even know where we stand. But it's like, it feels like it probably was 100% done on purpose. Like, Gideon knows enough about everyone to know, like, oh, you're Jen. Oh, you're Ian. It's like we get to meet, like, the ending of last episode makes me feel like he knows exactly who everyone is and does know their dynamic. He probably knows a lot more than you think. But either way, Tom is doing his, debriefing of Ian and everything, and Ian might be in a position to get fired, which is like, wait, really? It's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, Gideon wants his pound of flesh. He wants to make an example of you because it's kind of acting like a spoiled rich kid. It's like, oh, like, I'm going to pay you back for inconveniencing me and causing me all these issues and headaches. So it's like he wants to kind of get back at Ian, and Ian is just upset because it's like, I'm tired of feeling bad about doing what I believe was right, because I did this to protect this project because it was the only means of getting Ben home. Because Ian was like, when they were the only one, when everyone else had given up hope, Ian was like, I believe that there was a way to get Ben back. So I'm not going to apologize for doing what I did, for doing the right thing, for not giving up on Ben, because literally, sadly, everyone else did. Everyone else just accepted that Ben was dead, but Ian didn't. So, but that all struck a chord with Tom, because even Tom's like, right, the only way of getting Ben home, and as Ian pointed out too, is they're the only one that knows the code that could help get Ben home, so Ian can't go. So who else is on the chopping block? Jen. Someone has to be on the chopping block. But Magic is like, I don't want to do that. Like Jen and Ian, they were there for me when I was in my at my worst. When I was spiraling, when he was drinking and everything. But it's like someone has to be on the chopping block. And the moment that was set up, I was like, it's obviously going to be Magic. Magic's not going to sacrifice anyone that's a part of his family. Like, if anyone's going to fall on this sword, it's going to be him. And later on, he brings Jen into the office and tells Jen, like, right, I'm sorry. But I think he was saying, I'm sorry because I don't want you to, you're going to feel guilty about this, but this is my decision. And it's like, you're too valuable to this team. Like, you guys, like, for one, this team would not operate. Like, you guys need you, but they also need Magic leadership, because the problem is with Magic being gone, someone's going to be put in charge of all of this. Now, whether that's going to end up being Gideon, I don't know if he's going to do that, or some other military person or someone with a military history is going to take over this project, and it's not, they're going to lose Magic in a lot of ways. In the sense of, okay, Magic himself, but also like his involvement, like the magic that is this team will be lost. The bright light that is this team will dimmer without Magic around too. They'll lose a little of that luster, and once again, whoever is their leader isn't going to be a greatest person. Maybe they'll present themselves one way and just, operating with someone else in that leadership position becomes the question of who. Like I said, will it be Gideon? Will it be someone from the military or government overseeing everything? After this, they're probably going to get a lot of governmental oversight, even more so than before, so that's going to be interesting. There's also the Tom and Addison of it all, because Tom believes maybe at the end of the day we were meant to find each other just to break up. Like, that was supposed to be our story. Like, we were supposed to find each other, fall in love, and it was supposed to be a situation where you were always, it's that conversation of people being in your life forever and some people in your life for a season. Once again, the thing I always pull that from, it's like, I forgot what one, it was like a Medea play, I believe. I'm sure it popped up in one of the movies or something like that, but it was in one of Tyler Perry's plays. I will always remember that line from like year. I just can't remember which one it was from particular, but it was just that conversation of people being in your life for a season who are meant to teach you something, and then they're supposed to go away. And then there's other people who are meant to be in your life forever. So if someone's not in your life anymore, that just means they were meant to teach you something and move on, So, and it seems like that's where things are between Tom and Addison. So he tells Addison to stick to it and bring Ben home. So I don't know if this is like the last time we ever see Tom or not, but it might be a while before we see Tom again. Like I said, if at all. So I'm very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.